Okay. All right.
So welcome everyone to the brain health cooking class. So this is the Wellness Kitchen, or just my home kitchen. My name is Megan Rowe. I am a registered dietitian and manager at the Wellness Center. So if you are not registered for the brain health webinar on the 21st, I believe, you should, because we're going to go a lot deeper into actual information about brain health and eating for brain health and lifestyle for brain health. It'll be a webinar, it'll be on PowerPoint slides, data, all that stuff. Today we are cooking, so we're applying some of the knowledge that we're going to learn in a couple of weeks to the actual kitchen and to food. So just know that if you're watching this as far as a recording goes, that this also pertains to information on a webinar a little bit later. And I will be teaching that live, so if you're here live, make sure you register for that one as well. If you have questions, please type them into the chat. I will come back to them at the end because I can't really see them on my screen way over there. All right, we have recipes. Yes, I will email you the recipes after class, but a lot of times we have questions that come up, so I might edit the recipes with comments or notes before I send them out to you. That's why I don't send them out ahead of time. We are making 4 recipes today that help with our brain. Now, side note, caveat, kind of giving you the end result here is that all foods that are good for the brain are also good for the gut, are also good for our metabolism, are also good for our blood and circulatory system. Everything works together. It's really hard to parse through, well, these are good brain foods and these are good heart foods. They're all good for each other. They all work together. So just kind of know that if you are someone who's maybe following a really strict, cardiac diet, more than likely these foods are going to apply to you too. And there's always going to be some modifications based on your own personal health needs. But in general, when we're thinking about the brain, when we're thinking about food for the brain, we are thinking about healthy fats, lots of healthy fats. And we're going to talk through what that means and what a healthy fat really is. We are thinking about low sugar, specifically because the brain is a very hot, heated space with all those neurons firing going on. So if you think about creme brulee, what happens when fire hits sugar? It caramelizes, right? It gets sticky and hard. Those are plaques. That process of caramelization can happen in the brain, and that is what we see with cognitive issues such as Alzheimer's, various forms of dementia, Parkinson's disease, as we see these plaques forming. And while there's a lot of other factors at play, it's not just sugar. Sugar is a big contributor. So we want to look at really low added sugar or low glycemic types of foods when we're thinking about brain health, and we want antioxidants. The more color and phytonutrients, the more anti-inflammation we have. And when it comes to the brain, we want to limit inflammation. So those are 3 things we're looking at: is high healthy fats, low glycemic anything, low sugar, and lots and lots and lots of antioxidants. So you're going to see that applied to everything we make today. Okay, so we're going to start with a breakfast that can also kind of be dessert, and I'll show you about that. And then we're going to make kind of a full meal. We're going to make all the ingredients of what I'm going to eat for lunch today as soon as I click off of this webinar. So we're going to start with a chia pudding, and chia puddings are pretty trendy. You've probably made one at some point. There's lots of recipes out there. I like this one because it has tons of antioxidants in it, but also we're going to do a blending with it. A lot of times when I hear people eat chia pudding and they say they don't like it, it's not sweet enough. It kind of has a bland taste and texture. So we're going to add a lot of sweetness by blending instead of just kind of making the chia pudding itself. I'm also going to tell you how you can adapt this to be an overnight oats. If you're kind of like, I like the chia pudding, but the texture is a little too gelatinous. I get that. So we can kind of calm that down with oatmeal as well. So let's get started. This recipe serves 2 servings, by the way. So it's a really great one for meal prep if you want to, double it and have 4 breakfasts ready to go for the week, or in my case, just for the day, since I'm serving 4 people every single morning. We're going to start with 1 cup of your favorite milk. It can be dairy milk. It can be almond milk. This is where things get personalized to you. Are you following a keto diet? Are you lactose intolerant? This is where you have to pick the milk that's best for your needs. I, right today, am using macadamia nut milk, because we're thinking about brain health and we're thinking about healthy fats. Any type of nut fat is a really good source of fat. Our body can use that fat really well. You're also getting a little bit of protein. Dairy milk also has good fats, but it also has sugars. And if for any of us who are lactose intolerant, it may not be the best option. So I like macadamia nut milk as opposed to almond milk. Almond milk is very trendy and it's great because it's basically no calorie and no anything. It has kind of nothing in it. Versus macadamia nut milk has the fat component. So it's also low glycemic versus something like oat milk, which actually is fairly high glycemic. So you don't have the dairy piece, but you actually have kind of a lot of natural sugars in an oat milk. You don't get that in macadamia nut milk. The thing with alternative milks, almond, oat, macadamia, any of them, is watch out for the added sugars. Many brands will add a lot of sweetener to these because they don't taste as sweet as dairy milk. So it can sometimes be a hard transition for people. So just make sure you're double checking because it's so common. And if you can't tell by the front, if it doesn't say unsweetened or anything like that, you just go to the ingredient list. And if it's really just that, whatever that product is and water and maybe a flavoring or salt, that's okay. So this one is macadamia nut milk. They do add pea protein to this one so that it has a little bit more protein. And then it has a binder, which is potassium phosphate. So it makes it all thick and sticky, and salt. And that's it. So this is macadamia nut milk. And we're going to do 1 cup. And I am eyeballing. You could definitely, I highly recommend when you are starting out with new recipes, do the real measurement first. But then you can start to eyeball once you've got that down. What's nice about these two is they're shelf stable. So I buy them on Thrive Market and I'll get like 3 at a time and just have them in my pantry. And that way, when we run out of milk, I have some in the back as opposed to, dairy milk, which you can't do that with. Okay. We're now going to add our lemon juice because it's lemon blueberry. Lemon is an excellent source of antioxidants and vitamin C. In fact, all citrus is. So whether it's lemon or lime or even orange, they add a lot of potent anti-inflammatory antioxidants from both the juice as well as the zest. Oh, somebody is trying to come into our meeting. Not now. The zest itself is also really good because it has antioxidants and oil. So that when you like rub the outside of a lemon or an orange, you get kind of that oily white stuff on your hands. That is essential oils from the citrus, and that is really good fats as well. So we're going to do lemon juice and about 1 to 2 tablespoons, depending on how lemony you like it. I tend to juice 5 or 6 lemons every single weekend, just so I always have a jar of this because I also do lemon juice in the morning. And I tend to just add it to things as flavor. So it's easier for me to do that all at once on the weekend and have it done. That's also part of cognitive brain health, is what can make your life easier throughout the week. And for me, because I eat this so much, it's easier for me to just take 10 minutes and juice a ton of lemons all at once. Now, the recipe calls for also lemon zest. I'm going to show you something kind of cool that I've recently learned is I have dehydrated orange peel. So zest and juices from citrus can all be interchanged. It's just a slightly different flavor. So you could do lime juice here. You could do orange juice here. I had a bunch of oranges from our orange tree last weekend and we ate a bunch of oranges and I had all these peels left over. So I was Googling, what can I do with leftover orange peel just to get rid of waste? And I read that you can dehydrate them in the oven at the super lowest temperatures, like 215 degrees for 6 hours. And then you just pulse them in the food processor. And you have this awesome, like flaky, dried orange peel that is incredibly concentrated in all those antioxidants and essential oils. And it smells so good and tastes delicious. So it's orange, not lemon zest, because that's what I had. But I'm going to add some here as well. And now it's shelf stable. So now I don't have to have like zested oranges or lemons at the ready at all times or in the refrigerator. This can hang out in my pantry for a month. Okay, so I have some orange peel in there. I'm also going to add a cup of blueberries. Blueberries are pretty much your lowest glycemic fruit you can get. And it's there goes blueberries. It's also very high in antioxidants. I'm just going to throw it in there. Don't tell anybody I dropped it on the floor. I wouldn't do that in a real cooking class. Very high in antioxidants, and blueberries have actually been studied for their anti-inflammatory effect on brain health. So we have that. We're going to add a little bit of vanilla for no reason other than flavoring. It doesn't actually have a whole lot of nutrition component. The recipe calls for a half teaspoon. Again, I just eyeball it. And we're gonna do a half a banana so that we don't have to add sweetener. So you could, if you don't have a banana, or if it's just simply not sweet enough for you, you could add a teaspoon to 2 teaspoons of your favorite low glycemic sweetener. So you could do date syrup, allulose, monk fruit. I like just using natural fruit as the sugar. So I'm adding half a banana to the mix. All right. Now keep in mind, I talk a lot because I'm telling you about each ingredient as we go. You probably could have been done by now. You probably could have prepped the whole thing and had it in your fridge and be out the door. So it really is a faster meal prep than when you're not chit-chatting with everyone. Blend away. All right. Woo, isn't that beautiful? So this is another cool thing. Like, let's say you have little kids at home who maybe are a little bit picky, maybe a husband at home who's a little bit picky. Sometimes the color can be the difference between liking it or not, because we're really attracted to colorful foods as human beings. So now instead of this sort of white, mushy chia puddings, like, what is this, Mom? Now you have purple pudding or purple oatmeal. You could do blackberries instead. You could do strawberries instead and make a red one. You could do rainbow pudding for, springtime or St. Patrick's Day. There's a lot you can do with this. It's very forgiving. All right, so we're going to pour this into our jar. My biggest recommendation to you is anytime you buy anything in a jar, keep the jar because it helps for all this kind of stuff. Like I think this was a pasta sauce at one point. All right, I'm gonna get my chia seeds. Chia seeds. You can do white chia, you can do black chia. They come in all these different colors. They're slightly different in their phytonutrient makeup, but it doesn't really make a difference. Now, why do we like chia seeds? From a brain health perspective, they have so much good omega-3. Omega-3 is our very powerful anti-inflammatory fat. It's actually an essential fat. So there are certain types of fats we can't make in our bodies. Those are called essential because we have to get them from the diet. If you don't eat essential fats, you will not have them in your body and they can't do their job. So that's omega-3s, omega-6s, omega-9s. These are all your essential fats and they all kind of work together to do certain things and you need them in certain ratios. We're supposed to eat a really high amount of omega-3 to omega-6. Most Americans have it flip-flopped. We're eating way more omega-6s than we are omega-3s, and that creates inflammation. Even though we need omega-6s, we don't need them in the ratio we're eating them. And it's because we're not eating a lot of plant foods. We're not eating healthy fats. We're eating a lot of processed foods that have canola oil and industrialized oils, and those are high in omega-6s. So chia seeds have omega-3s. They're very high in omega-3s. We're going to add 3 tablespoons. They're also very high in fiber. Fiber helps the gut, helps us to digest correctly, have good, appropriate bowel movements for your day. And if we help the gut, we are helping the brain because the gut and the brain are connected. Whenever I do gut health topics, I say the same thing, where if you're eating for your gut, you're eating for your brain. If you're eating for your brain, you're eating for your gut because they are truly one. If you put something in your mouth, it hits the head area and it goes all the way down to the stomach and it comes back up. And a lot of our neurons and hormones that can communicate to the brain actually are produced in the gut. So it's a very good thing to think about the gut when we think about our brain. So we get good fiber here. As I stir, the type of fiber that's in the chia is going to start thickening and gelatinizing. That too is good for the gut. Whenever it's thick and kind of mucousy, that helps to heal the gut lining. So I usually will just stir for, a minute, let it set aside, and then stir again. Because what will happen is before they gel, they'll sink a little bit to the bottom, and then you come back the next day and you have this really, really, really thick chia pudding at the bottom and just kind of liquid at the top. So give it, another 30 to 60 seconds. If I'm doing a lot of other meal prep at the time, I might set it to the side of the counter and every once in a while come back and stir it. But really it only needs another 1 or 2 stirs. Put the lid on it, put it in the fridge. It needs to chill for at least 2 hours. I just do it overnight, like an overnight oatmeal. And then you're going to serve it with whatever sounds good. So in the recipe, I have ideas like put ricotta cheese on top, another healthy fat dairy, maybe some plain yogurt, or maybe coconut yogurt if you're not doing dairy. You could drizzle it with some peanut butter. I'm going to end up putting more orange zest and more real blueberries and maybe like a homemade coconut whipped cream on top, which is dessert-like. So that makes it a fun way to start the morning, but this is also super low glycemic. So it tastes sweet, it looks and feels like dessert, but we have almost like virtual no carbohydrates other than the blueberry here because of the types of milks we used. Even if we had used regular milk, even if we had put, let's say, a tablespoon of sweetener in here, you divvy that up into 2, you're still getting a low glycemic meal. Maybe not no glycemic, but pretty low in general. So we're hitting all those things. We have healthy fat from the chia, from the macadamia nut milk. We have low glycemic because we're only using low glycemic berries as our carbohydrate here. And we are getting lots of antioxidants from the blueberry and from the lemon. And we have a bonus of all the fiber going on. So it's all hitting our brain health objectives. And we're just going to put that in the refrigerator until tomorrow, which is when I'll serve it. You could also top it with nuts or like your favorite granola. Okay. Let me see if I can see that question. Can anyone share the brand? Oh, it looks like someone already talked about it, but it's Milkadamia is the brand. Milkadamia. I know that's backwards, but at least you can kind of get the gist. And I get a lot of my products from Thrive Market just because it's easier to get them delivered to my house. But they have this at Sprouts, Mother's, Whole Foods. A lot of grocery stores have that. It's usually like in the non-refrigerated dairy section. Okay, moving on. Let me move some of my chia stuff aside. Oh, I was going to tell you how to turn it into overnight oats. So if chia pudding isn't totally your jam, it's just a little too gelatinous, add an extra half cup of dairy and an extra and a half cup of oats to this entire mixture. And it will turn into like a chia overnight oat. You're going to get a much creamier rather than gelatinous texture. You can heat it up and make it actual oatmeal. You're going to get a little bit more glycemic, but you're still getting good fiber from the oats, and it's still a low glycemic meal overall. So, and that note is in your recipe when I send it out. So that's a good way to kind of tiptoe into chia pudding. Next up, we are going to make a chimichurri, turn this for you, out of carrot greens. So most people throw away things like beet greens, carrot greens, the tops of anything, but guess what? That's actually one of the more nutrient dense pieces of the vegetable. Just like the peel is often the more nutrient dense piece, and sometimes it's hard to eat, like the citrus, but we can come up with ways of eating the citrus peel. We can also come up with ways of eating the tops or the greens or the discards of a lot of the vegetables that we're eating, because usually that's where we're getting the most antioxidant. It can be where we get the most fiber, but it's definitely where we're getting the most phytonutrients. So I have down here under this huge pile, this big old bunch of carrot tops. So I had a full bunch of carrots and I took off all the greens and I'm just going to shove them in. Now, carrot greens, beet greens, all these greens, they don't really taste like anything. So you do have to add other types of flavoring to it. But just know that we are super powering our chimichurri or our pesto, if you're going in a pesto direction, by adding greens like this. So whenever you're cooking vegetables, even broccoli, like take off some of the leaves and throw it into stuff like this. So we have a full bunch of carrot tops. And now we're going to add our flavor. So you're going to add about a cup of cilantro. You can throw in the stems of cilantro. Just look out, like here I had this real chunky stem, so I'm not going to put that in there, but the little thin stems, they blend up no problem. So you don't have to take off all the stems, just take out the ones that are kind of like tree branches. Let's talk about herbs like cilantro, like basil, parsley. These are super, super, super powered plant foods with antioxidants and phytonutrients that you can't really get in a typical plant. I find that they are some of the easier types of vegetables to get into our diet, because if you are a little bit picky, maybe you don't really love vegetables, you don't need a whole heck of a lot to get a super powered punch of nutrients. So in about 2 to 3 tablespoons of cilantro, you're getting almost as much of the phytonutrients as you would get in an entire head of broccoli. So the greens and the herbs themselves, they're just really, really concentrated in the things that help us to be anti-inflammatory, help our blood move really, really well. Cilantro and parsley, one of the recommendations from the Heart Association is 2 to 3 tablespoons a day of cilantro or parsley because of how powerful they are. So this can be an easy way to get all of that. We're just throwing it in. What's also nice about herbs is you can interchange them pretty easily. So if you're the unlucky chosen one that has that genetic mutation where cilantro tastes like soap to you, just use this entire recipe with basil instead and make it more of a pesto. You could also use parsley or like half parsley, half cilantro, just kind of use what you have. You could really mess with the flavor and add like dill instead. It would be really good, I think. It would just be more of a tzatziki type of vibe. So about a cup here, and then the recipe also calls, oh, that's a thick stem, let me get that out. Also calls for a half a cup of basil. Again, mess with it. If you only have cilantro, just do a cup and a half of cilantro. If you only have basil, do a cup and a half of basil, but I had both, so there's about a half cup each, and again, just eyeball. Now we're going to do some garlic. It calls for 2 cloves of garlic. I don't have any garlic, so we're just going to do some garlic powder. And it calls for either Italian herbs or oregano. Again, we're getting concentrated antioxidants here, all from herbs. Just a kind of a sprinkle of red pepper flakes to your liking, depending on how spicy you like it. Red pepper flakes are an interesting one. Anything with spicy, so whether it's cayenne, paprika, red pepper flakes, this is specifically really good for our blood movement because think about it. When you eat something spicy, what happens? Your nose starts running, maybe your eyes start running. They truly do have an impact on the fluidity of our liquids in our body. So that makes it good for heart health. It helps our fluids keep moving. And if fluids are moving, guess where they're going? To the brain. They're bringing nutrients with them and they're all going up here and they're moving everywhere. So it's good for our circulatory system and our brain when we have some spicy foods. Not a ton. Now we're going to, what happened to my tablespoon? I used chia seeds with it. Hang on. We're gonna add some hemp seeds. So hemp seeds are one that some people don't necessarily know about. HEMP. Yes, they are from the hemp plant. No, they are not marijuana. The seed itself is the seed of the hemp plant, and we're eating the seed. So it has no, psychedelic impact whatsoever. It's just the seed. Seeds are another very concentrated, nutrient-dense plant food versus the actual plants themselves, because everything's in the seed, and that seed blossoms into this huge plant. So all the nutrition is there in the seed. Hemp happens to be one that is a complete protein, meaning it also has all of the amino acids that we need. It's very hard to find that in the plant world. Plus, it's high in omegas. Yay! So we want about 2 tablespoons of hemp seed. Hemp seeds kind of taste, they're kind of nutty. If you were to compare flaxseed to hemp seed, I would say flaxseed has a bit more of a sweet flavor profile versus hemp seed is a bit more kind of earthy, nutty. I like to sprinkle it on my salads because it kind of gives a little tiny bit of a crunch and it has that, more savory profile. But just like flaxseed, you could kind of blend it into things too. So I like to blend in hemp seed. Anywhere I'm blending, I'm going to see if I can throw in a seed, be it flax, be it chia, be it hemp seed, because they're so, so good for our brain health as far as their antioxidant capacity, and they have omega-3. So we're getting like a 2-1 punch there. The 2 tablespoons of hemp seed, we're going to do 2 tablespoons of red wine vinegar. This is just for flavor. A little bit for the nutrition compound, because anytime we're adding some acid, we're helping with our digestion of that food. And the acids help bring out some of the nutrition from plant foods. So 2 tablespoons isn't a huge amount. It's not like this is the most powerful nutrition component of this recipe, but it also tastes really good. And anytime something calls for vinegar, you can pretty much swap out your vinegar. So you could use white wine vinegar in here if you wanted, apple cider vinegar, slightly different flavor profiles. Okay, and then 3 tablespoons of olive oil. Now, lots of chimichurri recipes are going to call for just stirring. They're not actually going to call for blending, and that's perfectly fine. You can just stir all this up, kind of mush it down into a bowl, cover it with the red wine vinegar and olive oil, and let it sit for about an hour, and it'll be a really thick, chunky sauce that you could put on top of fish. You could put on top of baked tofu, stir into some chickpeas. Gonna be delicious. I kind of like blending my chimichurri just a bit. I don't puree it completely, but it just makes it a bit more saucy than chunky, if that makes sense. So either way is going to be fine. And honestly, then you just keep assessing. What are you using this chimichurri for? Is it going to be a marinade? Is it going to be a topping? Is it going to be a sauce? Are you stirring it in? Then you can decide, do you want it more chunky? Do you want it more thick? Do you want it more liquidy? This feels a little too chunky for my liking. So I'm going to pour in a little bit more olive oil and a little bit more red wine vinegar. I like mine very vinegary. I like the bite of it. So this is where you just get to play with the flavors that you like. And just for reference, the way I'm using this is we're making salmon burgers tonight. Oh, salmon, another high omega-3 brain food. And I'm drizzling this on top of the salmon burger as a sauce. So I definitely want mine a little bit more saucy. You just keep going with it. And again, you can add stuff, add salt, add pepper. In fact, I will add some salt and pepper to this. You could add some lemon juice to it if you want to. You could do nutritional yeast if you like nutritional yeast. We're going to use that in a different recipe a little bit later. But what we have here is this really concentrated, nutrient-dense recipe that's going to be good for our brain health. I'm adding more olive oil because it's still not saucy enough for me. But it also means that you don't need to worry as much about the nutrient density of the rest of the meal, because it can be hard if you, especially if you're someone who does suffer from some dementia or cognitive decline of some kind. Maybe you struggle with being in the kitchen too long, or you struggle with remembering what exactly you want to make, or maybe you don't have much of an appetite going on. Having things like sauces that are really, really healthful for you make it easy on the rest of the meal, because maybe you just want a small piece of chicken, or you're really not hungry enough and you just kind of want to make a small sandwich that's like a quarter of a piece of bread with some turkey on it or tuna, and you can lather this pesto or this chimichurri on there, get a lot of your nutrition here, and you don't have to have a whole huge side salad because this has the nutrition that you need. So that's why I'm a big, big fan of sauces and dips and dressings, because they give you nutrition and you can have less pressure on the rest of the meal. Okay, I think this is where I want it. Unlike pesto, chimichurri really is a bit more of a chunky sauce, but like I said, you can take it where you want it. You can make it more pesto-y by just blending. So let me show you what this looks like. Also, if you are watching your fat intake for whatever reason, or you just don't want to add so much oil, just add bone broth or any soup broth as the liquefier. I'm not going to have you watch me do the entire thing, but that way you can keep making it thinner and more liquefied, but it's not oil that you're adding. So you can always add water or broth. I like adding broth because it adds more flavor. But see how it's pretty thick? So it's still, there's still chunks in there, which I like, but it depends on what you're serving it on top of. Okay, so we're gonna set that aside. I'll put the rest of it in there later so that we can move on to our next recipe. Get rid of all these chunks. All right, so next, and that chimichurri is going to come back into play a little bit later, by the way. Next, we are going to do our fish. It would not be a brain health recipe or brain health class if we were not eating fish. Fish is the #1 protein when it comes to brain health because it's so high in omega-3s, so very low in saturated fats, and any type of unhealthy fat. Really, you're getting specifically monounsaturated and omega-3 fats in your fish. Plus, you're getting the protein. Plus, if it's a wild fish, you're also getting some antioxidants from whatever that fish ate. So the fattier the fish, the better, actually, when it comes to brain health. So our fatty fish are salmon, tuna, sardines, oysters, mussels. So most people are like, oh yeah, I'm good with salmon, and maybe you like tuna, but when it comes to the sardines, the oysters, the mussels, it's touch and go whenever I talk to people. So we're gonna make a sardine recipe today so that you can get on board with the sardines. And I have to admit, I was one too. I was always so anti-sardines because they smell so powerful and they just have a very distinct flavor. But man, are they good for you. Man, do they have the omega-3s and they're just very satiating because of the fat and the protein combo. Plus, they're really budget friendly. So you can have a whole meal for like $2 from a can and you can keep them in your pantry and they're easy to find. So what finally swayed me was, oh, I should show you the package before I open it. This one is from Trader Joe's. It's their sardines packed in water and they are wild caught. You do want to ideally look for wild caught whenever you're getting any fish product. Environmentally, sustainability, that's the better product. And typically they're eating a better diet, the fish itself. And you can find them packed in oil, but then you have to look at what kind of oil they're packing it in. So I just like to get them packed in water. So what finally swayed me to sardines is knowing how healthy they are. When I had kids, they're one of the #1 recommended foods to feed to babies. I'm like, oh, okay, I got to feed this to my babies. That means I have to eat it to be a good role model. And so I tried, the actual one. I can't eat the whole sardine itself. So I found some recipes for sardine salad. Basically think tuna salad, and we're just replacing it with sardines. And because of all the rest of the flavors compounded in there, it's so much more palatable if you are kind of in the anti-sardine camp like I was. So we're just gonna open up our can. Rinse it all off so you don't have stinky fish smell. Drain off the water. And the only thing you need to look out for with sardines is if they have any, the spine, because they do come with bones typically. So you just have to open it up and actually just physically remove the spine. Okay, it's so easy. If this grosses you out, turn away for a second. There's 2 more. But you just open it up, find the opening. One side will typically not have it, and you just boop, pull it out. So easy. Technically, they're edible, and they're actually a really good source of calcium, the bones, but I mean, no one wants to eat that texture, so I guess you could. If you do, no judgment. Okay, throw that all in there. And we're just gonna add some awesome ingredients to make it chunky and creamy so we can put it on a salad or put it on a sandwich or in a wrap with good stuff. So typically your tuna salads at places like Subway are just a bunch of mayonnaise that are full of industrialized oils, maybe some mustard, salt, and pepper. So it's like, ugh, I had this healthy tuna to begin with, but now I've added this non-healthy ingredient to it. So instead of adding mayonnaise, we're gonna do plain yogurt. So make sure it's plain, not vanilla. No one wants vanilla sardines. Ugh. Plain yogurt is an awesome alternative to things like mayonnaise and sour cream because it still has that tanginess without the added fat. So whatever yogurt you like, I like using Greek because it's a little thicker and because then I also get protein. So this was a plain non-fat yogurt from Trader Joe's. Greek yogurt from Trader Joe's. All right, so that's our mayonnaise alternative, but knowing that it doesn't quite have that same flavor profile as mayonnaise, we want to add a few other flavors. So we want to add some lemon juice. Anytime you're replacing with mayonnaise, if it's supposed to have a mayonnaise taste, you want to add a bit more tang. So add a little bit of lemon juice, and the recipe is juice of 1/2 of a lemon. So that's about 1 to 2 tablespoons. Then we're gonna add, guess what? More antioxidants, more fiber. So we're adding chopped up celery, so really diced celery, diced onion. Alliums are incredibly good for our gut and for our brain. Alliums are onions, shallots, garlic, any of those bulb type under the ground veggies that have a really powerful smell and flavor. Those have really specific types of polyphenols that help with significant anti-inflammation. So they really can take inflammation and take it away versus just promoting an anti-inflammatory environment. So I have chopped up onion, chopped up celery, and the recipe calls for diced carrot, which I didn't have. So I diced up some cucumber instead, just to give it some oomph. We're also going to add some capers. Capers I love, they're so underestimated and people don't really talk about capers, but capers have a really great salty bite to them. So they add a lot of flavor without having to add a lot of extra salt, or having to add too many capers either. They also are very similar to a berry. So they're low glycemic and they have kind of a berry polyphenol compound, but they're just so powerfully flavorful. We're gonna add some dill and some Dijon mustard. Oh, by the way, if you are like, no, there's no way I'm adding Greek yogurt to my fish, you can also do mashed avocado, and avocado is a very healthy fat for the brain as well. So you could kind of take it in that direction too. All right, so we've got all of our stuff here. We're gonna take a fork and just mash it up. And again, you get to play and have fun with it. So if it's not creamy enough, add more yogurt. If it's not tangy enough, add more Dijon mustard. Add more, oh, you could add garlic and salt and pepper. Should have done that too. Add some garlic and salt. Pepper. Your heart's desire. And guess what? Because we added all that good fiber and phytonutrients, this is technically a complete meal in and of itself. You could eat the whole darn thing, and this would be like brain heaven central. But we can also just use it as you would a tuna salad. So serve it with some crackers, maybe some very high fiber crackers instead of a Ritz. We do something with at least 3 grams of fiber in it. Maybe an almond cracker, like Simple Mills. Or maybe we serve it in a lettuce wrap. Okay, and so then it's super low glycemic meal. You're actually having almost no carb at all. You could go in a different direction with your lettuce wrap and use an endive leaf. If you've ever used endive, they're very, very bitter, which means they're very good for the gut, which means they're very good for the brain. But they're really, really cute. And so you can actually do like little tiny endive leaf bites with your sardine salad. Or maybe you're just putting it on a sandwich or in a wrap. Maybe you're sprinkling some cheese on top and making it a melt. It can be on regular bread with regular cheese on top of it, because you might be taking some miniature steps. You might just be replacing your regular tuna salad with this as a healthier option. The whole meal doesn't have to be perfect. It's where can we make some improvements? Okay, this is yet another great meal prepping recipe, because you can double, triple, quadruple this and feed a bunch of people. Maybe you take it to work. Maybe you don't eat it in the break room because it smells like sardines. But you can make a lot of it ahead of time, and a little bit goes a long way. Like that, the celery and the onion and the cucumber was just a little bit. I mean, like a little eighth of an onion that went into this. So you could use a whole onion and probably 5 or 6 cans of sardines. If the sardine flavor is too powerful, maybe you do half sardines, half tuna, wild tuna. Maybe you just swap and put canned salmon in here with all the rest of the ingredients, and that's okay too. If the sardine you can't quite get there with it, with the flavor, canned salmon is incredibly good for your brain and for your heart as well. So we've got lunch almost ready. We're going to do one more recipe to complete our lunch. We are going to make a flax wrap. So remember those seeds that I talked about? We love, love, love seeds because they're high in omegas. They have some protein. They're high in fiber. Flax. So we want to get the ground flax, not the flax seed itself. They both have health components. They're both good for you. They just do very, very different things. So the whole seed does not break down in our gastrointestinal tract. It also does not break down when we're mixing it into things. So you're never going to get like a gelatinized consistency if you're using the whole flaxseed. So for this particular recipe, we want ground flaxseed. We need to heat up the water real quick. We're going to do 1 cup of ground flaxseed, and what we're basically making here are flax tortillas, flax wraps. Tortillas are amazing for holding things, like making a burrito or a wrap. They taste good, they're satiating, but they can be very high glycemic depending on how we're eating them. Also, depending on the brand and what's in there, sometimes they have certain types of vegetable oils, which are not good for our brain because they can be inflammatory. So why not, if something's really easy to make, why not make it ourselves? We're just gonna try it. Not saying you can't find a good healthy tortilla out there. And again, if you have this healthy sardine mix and you're putting it in a regular tortilla, more power to you, it's still healthy. But we're seeing what we can, do on our own. So I have 1 cup of ground flaxseed. Because my water is heating up in my kettle over there, I'm gonna wait on that. I'm gonna add some of my flavorings. So what's cool about this is the flax plus the water, that's the basic. Flax and hot water. 1 cup flaxseed, 1.5 cups hot water, done. So then you just add your seasonings, your flavoring. So maybe you want to go sweet. Maybe you want kind of a sweet crepe-like thing for breakfast that you're adding some ricotta cheese to, or some fruit to. You could do cinnamon. You could even do a little bit of coconut sugar and some nutmeg and make that your tortilla flavoring. I'm going to wrap mine with my sardine salad. So I'm going to go savory and add a little bit of smoked paprika. I'm almost out of it. Oh no. How much I love it. A little bit of smoked paprika, a little bit of garlic powder. And by little bit, I mean like maybe a teaspoon, more like half a teaspoon. Some salt and pepper. And you can add the different flavors based on what you're using it for. So if it's more like a Tex-Mex type of thing that you're putting on the inside of it, maybe you want to do cumin and taco seasoning. Maybe you're doing kind of like a Greek wrap. You could put dill and Italian seasonings in there. Just for fun, I'm also going to put in nutritional yeast just to throw ingredients at you that are fun. Nutritional yeast tastes and smells like dehydrated cheese. So it's just going to give kind of an earthy, cheesy taste to my tortilla. And I'm going to get my spoon, mix it up. And I'm going to add 1 cup of hot water. So I just boiled this in my electric kettle. So it's totally up to you to mess with this, like all the other recipes. So the recipe is 1.5 cup of flaxseed to 1 cup water. I added 1 cup flax, and I'm probably going to have to add that other half cup. So I wasn't really paying attention. And just like the chia, this will start to thicken. It's going to make this kind of tortilla-like dough. And it'll take, I don't know, a minute or two. So hang with me as I stir this. So the thing I like about all these types of recipes is not that you always have to scratch cook your own tortillas and scratch cook everything. It's giving you alternatives for things that you might already like. So if you're someone who makes a wrap for lunch every single day, or you love to make breakfast burritos on the weekends, and it's a consistent piece of your diet, this is something that you could maybe swap out to make that thing that you're eating every day anyway a little bit healthier. So again, like, don't think that you always have to make your very own tortillas, but it can be an option, and they're actually a lot easier than you'd think because it's really just 2 main ingredients. So see how it's starting to thicken? It's no longer that watery mix. Thicken, 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 and it should start to kind of really, like, look. Right? It's like a really thick oatmeal. And that happened really quickly. So I'm going to kind of form it into a ball here. Let that thicken for just another quick minute while I move these things aside, because we have to roll them into tortillas. So I'm going to get parchment paper. Ta-da! And I'm going to oil it a little bit just so it doesn't stick to the parchment. And I'm going to take my mix. So this recipe makes 4 kind of yay size tortillas, like for a meal. So you could also turn it into 8 really mini ones, like a miniature little taco night type of thing. Or you could make 1 giant size breakfast burrito, maybe 2 giant size, but we don't want it quite that big. So just kind of eyeball, or you could get a knife and actually cut it, but I just usually eyeball it into 4ths. And I would usually let it sit a little bit longer to make it a little bit thicker, but because we're in a class here and you don't want to just sit and watch flaxseed thicken, I'm just gonna kind of put that there. So you're gonna do this 4 times. I am going to heat up my skillet while I keep talking to you, so it's ready for me. Just over medium low. We don't want it to burn. We're going to spray the other side of our parchment paper with some oil. So this is avocado oil spray. That's what I like to use, but it could be olive oil spray. Just make sure your oil sprays are not the same type of inflammatory oil that I am telling you not to use for cooking. So a lot of times people will grab like Pam or canola oil spray, but we don't want to use them for cooking, so we don't want them in our spray either. So avocado oil or olive oil spray. And just kind of press, press, press. And it depends on how perfect you like things to be. You could use a little rolling pin, or you could just press it flat. And it depends on how thick you like your tortillas and wraps, and if you want it to be perfectly circular or not. I kind of usually don't really care if it's perfectly circular. But approximately 1/8 of an inch, that's what your recipe says. It might stick a little bit, but there is our tortilla. And we're just gonna put it in the pan for about 2 minutes aside. And it's already oiled because it had the oil from the parchment, so we don't have to oil our pan. And sometimes this is the tricky part. Is actually getting it off. There we go. Okay, so I'm gonna let that kind of cook on its own for a couple of minutes. But now we have low glycemic, high fiber, high omega-3 tortilla that I'm going to put a sardine salad in that is high omega-3s, fiber, antioxidants, healthy fats. And we're going to eat that. I'm going to put some of my chimichurri on that for like a wrap type of sauce. And I might have a little bit of chia pudding for dessert. Who knows? Or maybe I'll have that for tomorrow, but I'm all prepped. And then this sauce is also prepped for me for dinner tonight. So we kind of have all these components coming together that, again, are still good for our heart and good for our gut and good for our inflammatory system and our immune system. Let me check on my tortilla. If you have questions as I'm flipping tortillas over here, by all means, put them into the chat. And I'll see if there are questions coming in while that cooks. Oh, that was it. Okay. All right. So again, reminder that on the 21st, we have brain health webinar. So we'll be diving into the kind of more nuanced information about brain health and how to truly know about macronutrients. For that, we'll talk about lifestyle for brain health, and not just food itself, but movement, cognitive exercises, social elements. There's a lot that goes into that. So let me try and get this done for you before you all head out. Not quite ready yet. The recording for this will be posted, and like I said, I will email everybody who was registered with their recipes by the end of the day today. So I'm not seeing any other questions roll in. So let's see what we can do here. Looking at the time too, so it's 12:49. We started at 12. So in 50 minutes, we have meal prepped our breakfast for tomorrow and the next day. We have made, oh my gosh, I totally screwed up the flip on that. Sorry, guys. We made lunch for today and for tomorrow. And we made a sauce for our lunch and for our dinner. And we've made a tortilla that is not going to look beautiful because I completely screwed up that flip. So when you think through that, you know, it's really kind of powerful. Sorry about that. My computer just gave me a message. It's really kind of powerful to think through what you can do in a short amount of time. Because again, I've been chit-chatting with you this whole time. So if you weren't talking and you were making all these things, you could have, doubled, tripled the recipes, done quite a bit. So, like I said, I flipped it wrong. So now I have a bent side there, but this is my little wrap that's very, very hot. Woo! But you can see, and I took it off a little bit early just to show you, that you have a nice wrap tortilla here. So if you were better at flipping than me, then you would have a better looking tortilla to fill it up with, to make a crepe with. So hopefully you like that one. And you're welcome, you're welcome. And yes, all of our webinars are always free. And if you're here for Mount Sac, for corporate wellness, it's part of your wellness benefit. So yes, anything we teach online is always free because you're not eating the food. When I teach in person, you have to pay for the food. So, all right, well, hopefully you really liked that. I'm going to turn off the recording and then I'll see if there's any other questions coming in. Okay, thanks everybody. Okay, so if there's